Now by our Foreign Affairs analyst James Marlow. James, thank you very much for joining me. Right, so James, talk to me about this disinformation task force and tell me a little bit more about it.
Well, I have to tell you, from my point of view, I have a Facebook account and a Twitter account, and I never, ever block anyone. But in the last day, I've had to block several people with regard to this disinformation. I was fine with regard to various other wars and with regard to the pandemic, but this insistence, the disinformation is coming from two main angles. One of them is that they're backing Putin and they're backing Moscow because Ukraine is full of neo-Nazis. That's one issue. The second issue is that NATO is right, or the USA, as I was told by somebody from Canada this morning, is right on the border of Russia. What would you do? Wouldn't you do something about it? So let's just clear that up, just perhaps for our viewers and also for the sake of this disinformation. Right. With regard to the neo-Nazis, almost every single country has a pact of neo-Nazis in their country. Here in Great Britain, we have neo-Nazis. In the United States, they're in almost every single state. In Canada, they have them in Russia. Let's remember, Russia, the Soviet Union, actually allied itself with Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party to carve off Poland. Now, they are talking about a certain military unit inside the Ukrainian army that, according to Wikipedia, and I know that it's not necessarily truthful, but they say between 10 to 12% of that particular unit is full of neo-Nazis. Now, let's just double that figure for the sake of it. Let's say 25%. OK, we know that in the British Army, you have some racists, you have some anti-Semites.
You've got racists everywhere, in any form, in any place, so you can't really get rid of that. That, unfortunately, is the way life seems to be.
And that is not enough reason for Putin to invade an independent country and to start bombing residential areas. That's one area.
It's very odd, because there isn't any reason why anyone should be allowed to do that, and it's just unbelievable that the Russians appear to be accepting that. Something doesn't really wash with me on that. I find that a bit disconcerting.
The second issue is, I'm told that America is right on the border of America. America is right on the border of Russia, I should say. Now, America is not on the border of Russia.
No, it's not.
It's NATO, which is close to the border. Now, NATO is a pact of 30 countries, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, I think signed in 1945 or 46, right after the Second World War. They have absolutely no record whatsoever of ever invading anyone anywhere.
They're being told.
It's a simply defensive, whereas the Soviet Union, USSR, Russia has a track record of invading countries. The only reason why NATO is there is simply just to defend. It's not to attack, and it's never gone on the offensive. So that's where we have to really throw lines right through this misinformation area. But if I may just turn very quickly to the war, and that is today is day number 25. It is quite extraordinary how the Ukrainian army, the Ukrainian people are entrenched deep down into their trenches, muddy trenches, I should say. The snow is no longer there. It's still freezing conditions. And I never expected that they would hold out this long. Certainly military experts around the world never expected they would hold out this long. I think one of the reasons is because their president, Zelensky, has instilled in them enough courage and confidence and inspired them with their backs to the wall to fight against this marching, massive Russian army coming into the country. Now, there's three different stages over here. I'll do this very, very quickly. Stage number one is that initially there was a huge amount of Russian troops 25 days ago, tanks, artillery, armoured vehicles that came into the country. Many of them were inexperienced. They were told, you're going into Ukraine, training exercise, you're going to be met with dancing and flowers and kisses and love. The Ukrainian people are going to love you. Of course, they used our N-law anti-missile, I say our British N-law anti-tank missile system to take out hundreds of tanks. The Americans supplied them mostly with the Javelin anti-tank missiles. A lot of the armoured vehicles and the tanks were taken out through this. The Russians have lost several thousand soldiers so far. It's terrible. Well, young soldiers, their sons, some of them are husbands,
some of them are
brothers.
behaving in a manner that is disgraceful, even when they, I mean, there's awful shots of them, killing somebody walking past a tank. I mean, it's just not good. It's not good at all.
That's stage one.
Very briefly, can you take me to the peace talks? What's happening? Is there anything going on? Last thing I heard was a 15-point plan. You've got about 30 seconds.
There's no 15-point plan.
No.
if you understand who Vladimir Putin is, and I've been following him, I've been covering him and Russia for another network for the last 10 years. I've got to know how the man works, how he thinks. I had lunch in Israel several years ago with one of his people to find out about how he works. His whole objective is to take countries to expand the Russian Federation, and the reason for that is because that the biggest defeat, the biggest humiliation for Russia was in 1991 when the Soviet Union fell. He is not going to give up Ukraine.
No, I think you're right there as well. Well, thank you very much, James. James Marlow, Foreign Affairs Analyst. Well, let's have we've